What's up, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of NeverLag. I'm one of your hosts, Levi G, and I am joined by the man who fell in the pit, Zach LaGreca. How you doing, man?
I'm pretty good. I'm coming off a high of Starbucks. I decided to opt for their Gruyere egg bites, and I got to say that protein, that that healthy selection, has given me a lot of energy for this show.
Excellent. Well, in case anyone was wondering how to say that, that is how you say it: Grayer egg bites.
Yeah, it's
Don't let
the
anyone tell you
proper
otherwise.
French pronunciation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you ever get your mozzarella sticks?
No, so that is for our listeners. I've been on a quest for Arby's mozzarella sticks for several days now. I went to Arby's a few days ago, and I know you're probably thinking that's a terrible decision, and you would be right. But I went there for mozzarella sticks, and I get to the little drive-up window, and the guy
What
says,
time? This is
"Just
like 9 p.m., right?
yeah, it's like this is when you make bad fast food
Normal,
decisions."
yeah, normal
The
bad decision time,
Yeah, like
10 p.m. maybe.
8 p.m. to 11 p.m. type time window. That's when I was there. It was dark. It was depressing. uh, so I ordered the mozzarella sticks, and he's like, "Just so you know, we're actually out of the one good thing it's not like I'm not here for Arby's meats, despite the commercials.
They do have
I'm
them.
here for your mozzie sticks." But thankfully, he says to me, "Don't worry, we get more tomorrow." As if I'm just gonna come right back tomorrow morning, first thing 9 a.m.
Right.
have my breakfast mozzarella sticks. I guess
You
I
did
just
it.
ate.
You did ask what time they opened, though, right?
No, Google Maps provided that information for
Okay.
me, but you know,
Okay.
but I guess I just had Gruyere egg bites, which is essentially a cheese breakfast. So maybe I should have gone back for that the next day. But
Oh my goodness.
that quest remains unfulfilled.
Yes. Unsatiated.
How are you doing, man?
Doing well. Doing well. Had a nice morning. We made it through another week. Friday is here. Little irritated with Amazon. I had something that was supposed to come to help with this whole setup. And it was going to arrive sometime between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. So I wrote it off. I was like, all right, it's not going to be here in time. It just arrived as we're starting. So typical universe behavior, honestly.
Just in time to not help your setup.
But also be more irritating than if it showed up at 9 p.m. Ironically,
Right.
like
Right.
that's the sweet spot that
Yeah.
I've become accustomed to from the universe. So
That is very much the universe spitting in your proverbial face.
correct. But we're not here to talk about the universe spitting in my proverbial face. We're here for the news and the reviews and the hot takes because this is NeverLag, where we sit down and throw our 2 cents into the wild world of video games. If you're into it, or maybe you just can't look away because it's such a train wreck, you can support us over on Patreon at patreon.com/neverlag. We'll have tiers and different benefits coming soon, but for now, you would just be supporting our humble podcast for the
For
time
now, you'd
being.
be flushing money down the drain. I mean, supporting us
we would
altruistically.
we would love you for it. So if you have no monies, it's no big deal. We appreciate you for watching right here on YouTube or listening wherever the heck you get your podcasts. But with all that out of the way, let's get into Gaming Weekly for February 11th, 2022. And we've got four stories today. So let's talk some games. So, getting into our first story. Biggest story of the week, I think, Nintendo Direct took place on Wednesday. Let me go ahead and pull that up. And you got a chance to watch through it, right?
I did. Yeah, I watched through it. I'm curious to get your general impression because I know, I feel like compared to a lot of other game reviewers, you tend to be a little critical. I mean, there are others who are critical of Nintendo, but I feel like you have some pretty valid criticisms. But I think some previous Nintendo Directs, you've been underwhelmed. I've actually been underwhelmed with some of their previous ones as well. I'm interested to hear what you think about this one, both like in its totality, but I think there's also a lot of specific things that are going to be interesting to dig into.
Yeah. So a little perspective on my relationship with Nintendo. Um, I'm a big fan of a lot of their IP. They're obviously core to gaming, and I would consider myself a big fan, but I'm not a like unconditional fanboy. I'm I have been very critical of a lot of their decisions lately. Um, they make strange decisions, but that's fine. It's a balance. I try to bring a balance, and sometimes I fail, but we'll see how it goes today. To get things started, I just am curious your general sentiments of the direct. Did it disappoint you? Did it deliver? Without getting too specific, I mean, just how do you feel coming out of it?
I feel pretty good. I actually think this was a like if I had to give a label to this direct, it would be pretty good. I know some people are really high on this, saying this is an incredible direct. I think I'm maybe a little bit more middle of the road, but I felt like it was a fairly good showing. There were a lot of different games upcoming that looked interesting. There were some bigger things that I'm specifically interested to talk about. I think my expectations had to play a part in this, though. I think there might be specific titles that people are waiting to hear about that maybe weren't covered. And so if you had an expectation of certain games being released that aren't, maybe your mileage might vary with your opinion of this direct. But I thought it was a pretty good showing. There was a lot to it that was interesting. Some past Nintendo directs have felt kind of fluffy, where it's like they introduce a new Smash Brothers character and some random DLC and some more obscure or like side content feeling stuff, and it feels like that's mostly it. And it feels like a very insubstantial offering, whereas this felt substantial. I thought there was a lot of interesting things to it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. My general sentiments coming out of this. So past directs, it's been a long time since we had just a straight killer direct. I feel from Nintendo. A lot of their previous directs I would describe as having something for everyone, but nothing for everyone. Does that make sense? Like there's something somewhere that you might be interested in, but there's no one thing that is for everyone. That might be a confusing way of putting this, but
I think I follow your
yeah.
thought here. Yeah.
So with this direct though, I actually came out of it I would say on the plus side. I thought it at least met, if not exceeded expectation,
Mm-hmm.
with the caveat of going into this obviously personally a lot of people too looking forward to Breath of the Wild, the sequel.
Yeah.
We
The
want to
elephant
hear
in the
more
room
about it.
here.
The
Yeah.
elephant in the room. We want the date. Uh, okay, so there's that, and then also personally, I'm a huge fan of Hollow Knight, and I know you are too. We're looking forward to any news on Silk Song. I mean, it's been just forever since we've heard anything about Silk Song,
Oh, I
and
know.
we're hoping it's coming out this year. But those two things are kind of like the giant things I'm waiting for confirmation on. Now, at the same time, I didn't go into this direct expecting both of those. If anything, I would have bet they wouldn't have been there rather than bet they would have. And so I would have been correct. And from that standpoint, I would say this direct, without having either of those two things in it, is about as good as the direct could have been, in
I
my
agree.
opinion, for me.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's where I say, like, I think this it exceeded expectations for Nintendo Direct, which I'm really happy about, assuming you were not like really expecting those things to be announced. And I think a lot of people aren't. I had the same thought as we haven't heard anything about Breath of the Wild 2. I didn't think it was going to be announced. I feel
I
like
think a lot
Hollow
of
Knight,
people are
Silk
starting to
Song.
wonder if they're actually games, if they
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah. So I think, I think having those expectations set, this was a really nice showing.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into it. We're not going to get into every single thing they released, just kind of the big hitters here. Right off the bat, we had Fire Emblem Warriors 3, which
Yeah. So
for me personally, I know a lot of people kind of saw this and they're like, oh, Fire Emblems. And then it's like Warriors. And you're like, oh, it's the Warriors. I think everyone kind of has that maybe lesser excitement for Warriors for the most part. How do you feel about it?
I'm excited. So I really enjoyed Fire Emblem Three Houses, which came out a couple years ago. I think it was like end of 2019. I really liked that, and this seems to be a continuation with a lot of the characters that I experienced then. My relationship to Fire Emblem is a little different than maybe some who've been following for a while. Like I had never played any Fire Emblem games until I played Three Houses a few years ago. So for me, like that game was a lot of fun. There were some really great characters. I thought the story did some really interesting things as you progressed through the game. And so kind of seeing the continuation of those characters and storylines has me very interested. I don't really know like the difference between the Warriors entry and like a general Fire Emblem entry. It's kind of TBD for me. So I don't know if this will hit, but just the fact that it's kind of following the same things that I really enjoyed a few years ago has me excited. So I'm anticipating this. I don't know how it's going to land, but I'm excited.
Okay. I don't know much about Fire Emblem. I haven't played any of the games. I've heard great things about Three Houses, as you mentioned. A lot of people rave about that game. I kind of view this Warriors. You're saying it's characters from that storyline?
Yeah, it from the trailer it shows like some of the main characters who were
Okay.
the main characters from the Three Houses
In
storyline,
that
which is
case,
what's
yeah, in
interesting.
that case, I kind of view it as the same thing as happened. Was it last year or 2020 when they released essentially? I forget the name of the game, but it was a Breath of the Wild Warriors game,
Yeah.
and it was set in Hyrule with the characters, but it was very much a Warriors game.
Yeah.
And I love Breath of the Wild. Didn't even go near it because the gameplay didn't really speak to me. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe I missed out. It's kind of how I looked at this. So it'll be interesting to see if the characters and the story pull you into maybe a genre or style of game you wouldn't typically
Yeah.
play.
It's not top of my list, but it is on my radar, so I'm excited to see how that lands.
All right, very next announcement. Some people might think they peaked here. Mario Strikers Battle League is real and is coming out June 10th. How do you feel about it? Did you ever play the original?
This looks awesome. I played the original a little bit, like a long time ago. Um, in general, I really like Mario sports related games. Like they're over the top. They're just a lot of fun. And so uh, this looks like exactly that. Like we get a sports game with Mario characters and like super abilities, and it's kind of absurd. There's something about seeing like Bowser and Mario and Princess Peach and Waluigi like informal soccer attire. Uh, you know, it's just such a strange.
I don't know if I would describe spiked shoulder pads as formal soccer attire, but
Well, I think that's how they do it in Europe, but like where they call it football, they
you're
have spiked.
European. It's a good thing we're here for all the things you know about Europe.
Yeah, you can trust me. I'm an expert.
You're a doctor.
It looks really cool. I really like the Nintendo Mario sports related games. What
Cool.
about you?
I have never played the original. In fact, I have barely played. I'm not sure if I've ever played a Mario sports game, which is a little bit tragic to say because I've heard nothing but good things about most of them, and especially Strikers. I know there's been a cult following of people who have just been waiting for a new one and had mostly given up hope. So this looks awesome. I'm absolutely going to try this out. I just love it's so it felt like such a good decision, which was a weird thing for Nintendo. Like it just felt like a great game, and the art style felt so different,
Hmm.
which I think is what a lot of people loved about the original. Is kind of the BA take on a lot of these characters that typically Nintendo keeps fluffy and cuddly,
Yeah.
having a little bit more attitude, bringing a little bit more to the party, and it looks like they kept that. I mean, it looks like it has a lot of attitude and a lot of style and a certain amount of intensity, and just looks like a lot of fun. So I love that they've incorporated different abilities, power ups, and like tackling people. I mean, who
Hmm.
wants to play soccer by the rules? So especially if
Yeah.
you're in a Mario game, it just looks very arcadey. Looks like a lot of fun. You can score 2 goals instead of one at one time. Like
Yep. There are no
it
yellow
looks,
cards in Mario Strikers. I actually don't know if
yeah.
that's true, but you can do a
Well,
lot of crazy stuff.
maybe there are, but yeah, I think it looks like a lot of fun. It's really cool too that they're incorporating um, couch co-op and online co-op and up
Yeah.
to 8 players. Like you can have 8 people 4v4. I just
Hmm.
think it looks like a ton of fun. So
Yeah, I'm excited to add
awesome.
this to our repertoire of like social games. I think
Yeah.
I tend to really love single player, games that have a good campaign or story. But there's something to be said for social games where you sit down with friends, whether you're in the same room or all playing remotely. I know, like during the pandemic times, we Fall Guys kind of fit that bill for a while for us. So really excited to have like more things that we can sit down and play as a group. And this just looks like a great time with friends.
The only problem there is we have to use Nintendo's online, which I still have yet to delve into because I'm
Yeah.
afraid of it, but someday. Okay, so next we had Splatoon 3. Um this was a this was a trailer essentially for the co-op mode, which honestly I wasn't even too familiar with it having a co-op mode. All I've ever heard about or played is the multiplayer. Um, anyways, what are your overview thoughts on this trailer, Splatoon 3 as a whole?
Yeah, I'm probably not the right person to ask because I haven't really played Splatoon, so I don't know a whole lot about it. I know of the franchise. I've definitely seen stuff from it. I think I've played as some of the Splatoon characters in like Smash Brothers or something, but I haven't really played the core games themselves. So I can't speak to it a whole lot from an outsider's perspective. It was kind of a weird trailer. um, I didn't really know what to make of it. Splatoon in the past has always seemed mildly interesting, but never quite grabbed my attention enough to try it. And this feels kind of the same for me, where I'm like, with all the games that we have available, I don't know that I'm going to dive into this. It doesn't look bad either. Like, it looks like it could be kind of fun. Kind of middle of the road for me. What do you think?
Feeling very similar. I was actually kind of looking forward to this, and I think this trailer was just nearly atrocious, honestly. Like I feel like it was poorly put together. Um, off-putting is the word I would put. Like it for someone who was kind of looking to Splatoon 3, it didn't do much for that. And the music, I think a lot of people have been talking about,
Mm-hmm.
was just weird. It kind of felt like it was going for that playing a track backwards eerie vibe that you get in like a Breath of the Wild, but done not well, and just kind of all of it just was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Very weirdly art directed, I felt like. So weird trailer. I'm still gonna keep my eye on it. Comes out, I don't have the date in here. Is it this summer? I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't think we have a specific date on that one yet. Okay, Star Wars Force Unleashed is coming to the Switch. What'd you think about that one?
So I played Force Unleashed on, I think it was it PS3. I played it was a while ago. I'm pretty sure it was PS3. And so this game was pretty cool when I played it. And I remember thinking that it looked really good. And in this, it looked really bad. The Switch version of Force Unleashed looks worse than I remember it. And I
So
can't tell. I did go
did
back
you
and
hear
look.
why?
I have not heard why, and I'm curious to
So
know
they are using the Wii version and porting it to Switch.
why. So
Weird Nintendo decision.
weird Nintendo decision like this. That's such a strange choice.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Like, because I think the Switch should be powerful enough to like play a game from that generation as it was.
It should be more powerful than the Wii.
It should be more powerful than the Wii. Yeah.
I
So I
don't
think
know.
I was frustrated because I don't know whether or not I would have gone back and played this on the Switch in the first
But now
place,
you
just with everything
probably
going
won't.
on. Now I almost definitely won't because it's like
Yeah.
I would rather dig out my old PS3 version that's in a box
Yeah.
somewhere in the basement.
I didn't play this, so this wasn't for me, but I do think that this was a swing and a miss for them, because anyone like you who this could have tapped on some nostalgia for, I feel like they lost because the entire collective fan group looked at it and went, did it really look that bad?
Yeah.
And the answer was no.
Yeah,
It just does now.
Yep.
So I don't know. What can you do? Next, we got another fairly more in-depth look at Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This game continues to look fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I am super getting Mario Odyssey vibes from this game. I kind of feel like this game is going to be 2022's Mario Odyssey, because it doesn't look like we're going to get Mario Odyssey 2 anytime soon. But clearly they've pulled a lot from it. Kirby's abilities already kind of mimic the hat tossing mechanic from Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, Kirby's ability to absorb other powers is a blatant ripoff of Mario.
I know. Can you
A
believe
blatant
Mario
ripoff
did
of
it
Mario's
first?
ability to blatantly rip off Kirby.
Mario
No, I
did it
agree.
first in 2017.
Right. Yeah. Kirby didn't exist before that.
Yeah.
No, it looks awesome. I agree. It very much has that feel of, like the world feels kind of adventurous and expansive. There's a lot of different zones, and it kind of gives you some of those vibes of like Mario Odyssey, where you're in these bright, colorful, adventurous
Visually
settings and
distinct.
locations,
Yeah.
visually distinct, and then quirky abilities and the ability to take on certain traits of other creatures or things in your environment, and use those to navigate the kind of the levels. So
Yeah. What'd you think of mouthful mode?
so weird, but I mean, it works. Kirby's weird anyway. Like, he's a
Is
big
it
gumball
brilliant?
that
Is
it.
it brilliant, or should they have workshopped that term a little bit longer? It's really hard to say.
I think it's kind of funny. I think the terminology being weird is fine. What I'm interested in is like how fun is the mode to actually play, and it looks pretty fun. But
It
we'll have
does,
to
yeah.
see.
Yeah, the whole car
Mouthful
thing and the
mode.
light bulb.
I
Yeah, when I saw
like it.
mouth
I like the
cone
idea of a
mouth.
bunch of 8-year-olds running around talking about mouthful mode, and you're just like,
Yeah.
okay,
It's it's a it's a it's a meme inducer. That's what that
totally.
term is.
But an endearing one, I think. It looks fun. It looks adorable in a very fun Nintendo way. And I'm just super excited. It looks like a huge adventure. Like you said, this feels like the Mario Odyssey of this year. It feels like this is probably the big mainline single player experience that we get from Nintendo this year.
Hey, don't
Um,
you put that on Breath of the Wild too. It's still coming.
okay, sure, yeah, definitely. I'm
Yeah, I think
skeptical of
so.
that,
I
but
think at the end of the year we're going to look back and Kirby and the Forgotten Land will be in the Well, do you think it'll be in the game of year discussions?
I
I
really
think it
don't.
will be.
I think it
It's
will
gonna
be.
the problem
It's a
is this year
stacked
feels
year.
insane.
It's a
Year
super
feels
stacked
insane.
year. I
Last
think
year
it'll
for
be in
sure
the
it would have been.
conversation. I think depending on what types of games you really prefer, I think they're, for people who tend to really optimize to the Nintendo kind of playful fun feel, I'm sure this will be in the conversation. And even if not, I mean, I
In
think this
general,
will.
though, Nintendo tends to have one or two in the game of the year discussion at the end
Right,
of the
and
year, and I feel like
their
this
mainline
might be.
IP story, their mainline entries tend to be really good. Usually the case. So I think this will be really good. It's going into Nintendo Direct, I think Kirby was what I was most excited to see more about, and it probably still is. Although there are some other really cool things in here, like Mario Strikers. There's a few we haven't talked about, but
Yeah.
I think Kirby's still probably what I'm most excited about. Certainly from like a single player standpoint, but um, yeah, I think I'm hoping this is in conversation of game of
Well,
the year.
it's coming out next month, so we'll find out pretty soon. Next, they unveiled a brand new Disney kart game, Disney Speedstorm. It's going to be free to play, and it's coming out sometime this summer. Will feature cross-play between all platforms. I thought this was very intriguing to me until they said free to play, and then it kind of took the steam out of it for me a little bit. Which
Mm-hmm.
free to play is such a divisive term that can go either way.
Yeah,
Um, the one thing I'll note is that this game looked way better than I feel like it has a right to look. Graphically, I just thought it was a very good looking game. It looks visually striking, and if it's fun and the monetization isn't horrible, it could be an awesome kart racer to hop into.
I think monetization is kind of the open question, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it looks kind of cool. I'd be willing to try it out. I think my daughter might be interested in it, and it could be a fun thing to like kind of play with her. So we'll see. It's not like super high on my list, but it didn't look terrible.
yeah, no, not at all. It's intriguing. It's intriguing. So we'll see, and it's free to play. So if it's any good, we can hop in and try it.
Yep.
Next was, I thought this was pretty awesome. Someone who the original Wii Sports bundle holds a solid amount of nostalgia at this point. They unveiled Switch Sports, which will be coming out
Yes.
April 29th, coming out pretty soon. Um, let's see here. And it will feature, I think it was 6 sports at launch: badminton, volleyball, tennis, soccer, chambara, which is like a sword fighting over a giant pit of water of death, and bowling. And then golf will be added later as DLC. Maybe they'll add more sports. I don't know. I'm glad they're adding golf. Golf felt like a glaring omission
Yeah.
when they kind of held that till the end. Man, I'm kind of pretty excited about this, actually.
Yeah, this is one of the things that had me most excited, and I wasn't really expecting or thinking about. Um, Wii Sports was a lot of fun. I think the Wii and the Wii U had plenty of issues, but Wii Sports from the get go was a lot of fun to play. It was very unique and different. Um, it it has a very distinct place in my mind and in my gaming experiences, both individually and then with friends. And Wii bowling, Wii golf, Wii tennis, Wii boxing were all a lot of fun back in the day. And so, getting a new
Yeah,
round of sports on the Switch, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm really excited they're doing it. And I honestly, all of the sports look really fun. Chambara makes me question, like, how come we didn't get to do this in school as kids? That's sword fighting over a pit of water. That's pretty great.
because you didn't go to school in Europe.
That's probably why.
Another fact
Despite
about
being an
Europe. No,
expert.
I have no idea.
um,
Yeah, it looks
yeah,
interesting.
it looks great. And my thinking too, as we were watching this, is this all looks so good, and just the visuals and the aesthetic. It's such a weird but great vibe. It's like, you hear Facebook talking about the metaverse and like playing games together, and it's like, I don't think anyone wants to do that in Facebook. But when I think about online virtual games with other people in kind of like sort of a real world analog, like playing badminton or something like that, I feel like Wii Sports or Nintendo Switch Sports will be kind of more up my alley in that kind of
Yeah.
for that type of product.
I feel like even for people who maybe didn't play much on the original Wii, um, Wii Sports was such its own zeitgeist that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like so many people experienced, maybe that you didn't even own a Wii, and over at someone's house you played Wii bowling. Like I feel
Yeah.
like everyone has had that experience, and it's just it was a shame to not have that anymore. So another weirdly not weird Nintendo decision here that they're putting out a new Switch version. I think this is going to be a major hit. So
It's a smart move because it kind of, like you said, it helps expand beyond their normal demographic. Because now that you mention it, I do remember playing Wii Sports with non-gamers, like not just my parents, but like my friends' parents. Random people who never played video games would sit down and play a little bit of Wii Sports, and so
yep,
I think this is a really smart move, and I think everybody's gonna have a lot of fun with it. And like you said, the fact that golf is being added in as well, I'm pretty happy. I think this is about as good as they could have done.
yeah. All right, next we had a surprising DLC announcement for Metroid Dread. They will be adding in both a Dread mode, which presumably has you dying in one hit and sounds awful, or a Rookie mode, where you presumably take less damage and the game is easier. That actually, they will not be adding that. It has already been added. That came out the day of the Direct and can be downloaded. That's great. Allows more people to experience it if maybe the difficulty had turned them away from the game, as that was a bit of discussion when it came out. And then what I find to be slightly more exciting for me personally, having already beat the game, they will be adding a boss rush later this year, which I think any game that has any bosses worth anything should have a boss rush mode. So kind of cool to see them adding DLC for games. I almost feel like I think this is awesome, and I think maybe it adds a precedent for them. As a matter of fact, as we'll get into throughout the remainder of this direct, maybe Nintendo is starting to kind of turn their eyes towards DLC on games a little bit more, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, this felt very like pro consumer to me, which is often not a label I would apply to Nintendo. So
Yeah,
it's good to see it. I mean, I'm always a big fan of additional modes. Like there's a whole lot of discourse around game difficulty and what that means, and there are some compelling arguments for a few different reasons on multiple sides. But I think the simplest answer is like have a couple of different modes, and that allows you to maintain like the integrity of difficulty settings where a game designer is trying to elicit a certain experience while still enabling that option to be experienced by others. So having a rookie mode is, I think, great. A dread mode is interesting. Like I'm sure there'll be people who make use of that. The difficulty wasn't terrible for me in the core game, but I don't know that I want to experience it in a dread mode. We'll
it
see.
feels like a content creator thing, maybe almost like it'll
Yeah,
be great for
yeah,
people trying to
totally.
create some content.
Totally. But the boss rush actually, I'm not always a big fan of like the super difficult stuff, and boss rushes haven't necessarily been a go-to for me in the past, but I loved almost all of the bosses in Metroid Dread. And I've thought to like I 100% of the game a few months ago, and I've multiple times since then thought, I wish I could go back and fight like this one specific boss or this other boss just to play them again. So getting to go through a boss rush and just hit those points, because I think one of the bigger criticisms of Metroid Dread is some of the exploration was lacking in a few areas. And so being able to skip that on a second playthrough and just experience some of the highlights of the boss fights, I think is a fantastic addition to the game.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. I've thought if I were to go back and play this game at all, the only parts I want to play are the bosses. I don't really want to play the rest of the game. So here you go. Fantastic. Next was a biggie.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody expecting, we had some Mario Kart 9 leaks. Everyone thinks, oh, we're finally moving on from Mario Kart 8. I think it is the highest selling Switch game.
I believe it is. Yeah.
I believe so. I mean, they have just continued to rake it in. And no, we do not get Mario Kart 9. And it looks like we may never get Mario Kart 9 because they unveiled Mario Kart 8 Booster Course Pass, which is 8 tracks. It is 48. Let me say it's 48 total tracks being released 8 at a time. So in 6 segments. And now the pricing scared me at first. I think a lot of people kind of had
Mm-hmm.
this instant reaction of like, it said $25. The booster course pass costs $24.99 and is a standalone purchase, or it also comes with the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. Subscribers will get it for free, but it is not per 8 courses, which would have which would have been egregious, but we've seen we've seen as bad or worse done. So, but thankfully it is in fact just $25 for 48 courses, which will start being released. They said March 18th, 2022, and will end in late 2023. So over the course of the next year and a half, almost 2 years, we will get 48 new courses added to Mario Kart 8. What do you think?
I'm super excited. I initially was also worried because we've seen egregious pricing in our industry, and Nintendo has been known to make very anti-consumer decisions at times. So when I first saw $25 and this like eight by six grid of like releasing things, I was like, oh gosh, this is gonna. I'm probably gonna pay for this, and it's gonna cost me $150 or
I
whatever,
know.
whatever.
Yeah.
The fact that you get 48 courses for $25 is a great deal. A lot of times I harp on Nintendo for re-releasing old content and recharging you for it. They love to do that. Sometimes I feel like that's not warranted. Sometimes maybe it is, but in this case, it feels like they're going to have to probably make some changes to a lot of the levels they're re-releasing because they're adding them into Mario Kart 8, which ostensibly has some slightly different mechanics. So I think there's a little bit of work they have to put into that, but also that much content being within the current gen game that you can play on your current Switch console and have access to, I think is totally worth it. That's like 50 cents a track. And I love Mario Kart. Mario Kart 8's fun, but there are a lot of tracks I always want to go back to and play on Double Dash or N64 or some of the other different entries they've had. And so having access to all of that in one place is really cool. And then being able to play that like online potentially with people. So I think this is a great move. I'm super excited for more Mario Kart. As much as like a Mario Kart 9 with some vastly new different levels does still sound interesting, Mario Kart's one of those games where I don't necessarily need it to be as much new content as frequently. And I think having access to a lot of the great content over a period of time in one convenient location is probably more important to me right now. So I'm very
Yeah.
excited about this.
Yeah. For me, I think this is, I never would have seen this coming. And I think this is far better than if they had announced Mario Kart 9. They will have to, I mean, I think it's going to be even more than a remaster on a lot of these tracks because the game plays differently. They're going to have to change things, up the res. That I think there's a solid amount of work that's going to go into bringing these tracks to life on the Switch in Mario Kart 8. So I won't at all knock the work done there. And then also the fact is 48 courses essentially doubles the amount of courses in Mario Kart 8. So you talk about Nintendo re-releasing um, old Zelda games or whatever, or bundling the Mario games and selling them for $60, and you're like, you really did nothing. You barely ported these, and you're charging us $60. Here it feels like they're doing the work. They could have easily called this Mario Kart 9,
Yeah.
kept all the tracks from Mario Kart 8 and added in these tracks um, to bring the total higher and charge $60 to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, they're doing 25 to add all these courses in. They're all in one place. Yeah, it feels bizarrely consumer friendly, which I is almost a theme of this direct. And I, like I said, for all the crap I've given Nintendo for their practices and maybe their directs in the past, I feel like this was a breath of fresh air. A lot of
Yeah.
announcements in this direct, and I hope we continue to see some of these ideologies and things moving forward. And I think that's what people have been waiting for. We've been waiting for, like, Smash Bros was kind of set the stage for all these games. We want everyone's here in every game. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, Smash Bros Ultimate was Ultimate Smash Bros. It was everything. And people are waiting for that with Mario Kart. And this is kind of Mario Kart Ultimate at this point,
Mm-hmm.
is what we'll be getting. I think we're still waiting for that with something like Mario Party, which to me was disappointing on the Switch. I'm waiting
Yeah.
for a let's get this done with Mario Party, where you have all the different um, boards from across the different games and everything. So I love to see them doing this. I'd love to see them continue doing this. And yeah, I think at this point we don't get another brand new Mario Kart until the successor to the Switch, because this
Yeah.
this takes us to the end of 2023. A lot of people saying that this essentially is Mario Kart 9 and that the next installment will be Mario Kart 10 likely. So
Yeah.
does
And I
seem
think
like
this is
where
a
we're
smart
headed.
move, like for Nintendo from a business standpoint. This is going to drive more sales of Mario Kart 8, which is already crazy. It's going to drive a ton of, like, the value is
Hmm.
so strong that we're going to see a lot of sales of
You would think the
this
attach
pack.
rate for this pack to those who have purchased the game is going to be very high, because
Yeah.
it's a game people play sporadically but continue to play with
Yeah.
their friends. And if they want to play with their friends, they're going to want these tracks. I think you're going to have a pretty high attach rate. So yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
also
It's
an
a
excellent
smart move,
business
and
decision.
it allows them to save Mario Kart 9 for the successor, like you said, which will be, I think, a super strong marketing vehicle, potentially year 1, year 2 release title. So it makes a lot of business sense. But I'm fine with astute business decisions when they also benefit the customer, and in this case, it feels like they've managed to kind of thread that needle. So pretty happy.
Yeah, very rarely we get a win-win here, customer and business side for the publisher. Um, Last announcement, which we were all hoping was going to be Breath of the Wild, but not to throw shade at Xenoblade. There's a lot of fans of Xenoblade, so we got the announcement for Xenoblade Chronicles
Which
3,
looks really cool.
which honestly does look pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
set for a release window of September 2022, later this year. I have never played one of the you're noticing a pattern here. I've played a lot of the core Nintendo games, but the ones that are just outside the core, I haven't played. Xenoblade's one of them. I've almost gotten into Xenoblade 2 many times, but didn't quite make it. And honestly, looking at this, it might be enough to get me through the barrier for Xenoblade, because it looks epic. It continues to look epic. Just the giant set pieces and things going on. Um, the notes I wrote down were, it looks epic, lots of weapons, and lots of people playing the flute for some reason. So,
Always a
but
good always a good sign in video games.
you
You see
always want
someone
people.
playing a flute in a fantasy franchise video game, grab your wallet. That's what I say. That's what I say. No, I agree. So I also have almost played Xenoblade 2 multiple times. I got a couple hours into it. I really liked the world, some of the story beats. I liked a lot of elements of Xenoblade 2, but the gameplay itself, I struggled to connect with enough to keep going. And there's just a lot of other games and things going on in my life at the time. So I never got through it. I think if it had fallen at a different time, I think I might have progressed through the second Xenoblade, because it was good, but the gameplay wasn't like super engaging to me. But a lot of the elements of the world were. It ratchets up the world and the creatures and the epicness. I'm a big fan of fantasy type stuff, so I think I'm going to be looking into this game pretty seriously, and I'm hoping, like you said, that this will be enough that I'm able to actually really get into this, get invested, and hopefully have a great time with it. Because I know a lot of people love and have really enjoyed the previous Xenoblade games, so this looks really cool.
Yeah, agreed. We'll find out later this year. So those are the highlights from the Nintendo Direct. Yeah, I give it a pretty good rating. I thought it was solid. I do hope that we have more news incoming around the E3 time, maybe in May or June, about the end of the year. Still hoping for Breath of the Wild, but we'll see. Our next news story is Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit gaming rights up for sale. So I'll
Yeah,
go ahead and let you take point.
I added this because I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, the books, the movies, some of the previous video games. I would be remiss if I didn't point this out. This may not be relevant to everybody, but some of the rights, gaming rights, are going up for sale, which is really interesting. We've had some good Lord of the Rings and Hobbit games in the past. Many of them associated with the movie franchise in previous decades. Shadow of Mordor being a pretty good entry, and then we have Lord of the Rings Gollum coming out later this year, which I'm interested in. Not sure how well it's actually going to land, but it's on my radar. But the rights being up for sale is exciting to me because this is a humongous IP, one of the biggest franchises in of the past century, and so I could imagine there's a lot of studios who could do really cool things in this world, and I'm excited to see that potential hopefully be realized. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I think the timing makes sense. There's a new Amazon show, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, coming out this year, so just kind of a cool thing to keep an eye on. And for anybody who's a fan of those franchises, hopefully we'll see some cool new potential entries into this universe in video game form in the years to come.
Yeah, I mean we've seen everything being sold, everything being purchased. So this is interesting, and we won't see the effects of it likely for another five years at least. But we'll have a verdict in 5 years, I guess. We'll see where it goes.
A lot of great games coming when we're old. Can't wait.
Mm-hmm. Always when we're old. Okay. Our next story we'll touch on here. Microsoft confirms Activision Blizzard will release games on PlayStation beyond existing agreements. This is an article coming from IGN by Joe Screbbles. And the quote here, let's see here. Who is this quote from? Someone higher up at Activision Blizzard. Brad Smith. Quote says, to be clear, Microsoft will continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles available on PlayStation through the term of any existing agreement with Activision, of course. And we have committed to Sony that we will also make them available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreement and into the future so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy the games they love, end quote. So, kind of interesting. A lot of people thought Call of Duty's gone. These other IP, they're gone from PlayStation, similar to what happened with Bethesda, or what we assume is going to be happening with Bethesda. But then it came out, Sony says, oh no, Call of Duty's staying for the foreseeable future. People thought, oh, that's just because they had existing contracts for the next 3 years. Well, here we have a quote saying they are committed to Sony, which that's up for debate what that means, that they want to continue to make these games available on PlayStation beyond these contracts. What does that mean to you? What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, it's promising because, as we know, executives can never lie. That's not true, but
Yes.
this is promising, right? Like these types of statements, if they do lie, can very much come back to bite them. So I do think this isn't something they would say super lightly, right? So it does indicate, I think, a commitment to make these games available across platform. I think, you know, this makes a lot of sense from a game developer standpoint, I think, because for a developer, the more places you can have your games, the more sales you can get, right? So there's that benefit. And it's kind of this weird place now too, with like Sony and Microsoft starting to acquire these different studios, where on the one hand, exclusivity drives people to your specific platform or console, but on the other hand, you lose sales when you limit things in that way, and you potentially cut down the demographic of customers you're trying to reach. So there's kind of value either way here. I think it's interesting to show like kind of more of a nuanced evolution of the whole head-to-head battle between the larger gaming entities, where at first it felt like, oh, they have Bethesda, now Microsoft has Skyrim, what's Sony going to do? And oh, now Microsoft has World of Warcraft and Blizzard stuff, and now what's Sony going to acquire? Now they've acquired Bungie, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. It's not as simple as, to play some of these games you have to go on one platform or the other, right? So I don't know that I have a super intelligent opinion, other than it's interesting to see the evolution. and I can kind of see some of the business reasoning why this might be the case. I feel like it could potentially get really confusing on the consumer side, trying to know when certain games will or won't be available on the platform of your choice.
Yeah. I think for me, this illustrates the fact that we don't know what the landscape is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. Um, we've talked a little bit about acquisition wars and how everything's being acquired and consolidated in the industry, and we thought that meant exclusivity would start to branch off. Are you a part of this, or are you a part of this? This news, combined with the fact that Sony's purchase of Bungie, they're leaving Bungie, fairly independent, allowing them to put their games wherever they want. It does seem like we're starting to see a shift in the ideology of exclusivity. So I don't know. Yeah, it's really tough to say. And it's another thing we won't really know for another year or two, or maybe longer. But it does seem like we're seeing a shift, in that I I bought this studio and now I own their games and you can only play them here. Maybe that's becoming an antiquated concept. I don't know. We'll find out. There's a lot of people in suits trying to figure out how the
Yeah.
numbers work, and
I could
it's
see a
above
world that's kind of a
above my
mix of
pay grade.
both. Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of expect us to see certain franchises that will cross platform
I
on
don't. Yeah, let
on
me
either
be clear.
side.
I don't think Sony's first party like Santa Monica or Naughty Dog or Insomniac, I don't think those are going to be coming to Xbox
Right.
ever, if anytime soon. That's not what I mean.
And I think Xbox is probably going to have some exclusivity with some of their titles as well. Like,
Yeah.
really interested to see what they do with something like Elder Scrolls, right? Like something that has a ton of power behind it. I think they're going to be more strategically deploying exclusives than trying to make it a 100% black and white situation. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah. We'll find out. We're fixing to find out. Our final story for the day is a Sifu review roundup. It's been out for, I think, over a week now, just a week, just about a week. And right now it's sitting at a Metacritic of 80, an Open Critic of 80, and IGN gave it a 9 out of 10. I'll read their quoted verdicts here. Quote, Sifu demands a lot from you, and that's a sword that cuts both ways. Its combat is impeccable, with incredibly smooth and impactful animation, deep fighting mechanics, and challenging enemies that really make you fight tooth and nail for every victory. At the same time, the repetition that comes from replaying levels so you can essentially set a high score and give yourself a chance at completing the rest of the short campaign with what's effectively one persistent pool of lives can lead to some really frustrating moments with no clear path through outside of just trying and trying until you get better at it, which can be frustrating. On the other side of that vicious learning curve, though, is one of the most impressive beat-em-ups I've ever played, with excellent level design, fantastic music, and once it was all over, a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction that few other video games can provide. Game Informer gave it a 7.25 out of 10, which I didn't know we were doing 0.25s, but their little clip here is, quote, like a 20-year-old combatant, Sifu comes out of the gate strong. Its core combat feels excellent, and the moment-to-moment action looks better than most Hollywood blockbusters. Sadly, as you progress, the action begins to show its teeth and eventually becomes a tiresome grind. Sifu deserves props for its incredible sense of style and tone, but it is also a great example of why growing old isn't always fun. So, what are my thoughts on Sifu? There was a lot of hype for Sifu coming into the year as one of these indie darlings people were looking forward to. For me, I personally wasn't terribly looking forward to it. And it's kind of ironic. I mean, an 80 is not a bad score, but there's been a lot of mixed opinion on this and a lot of discussion about how the difficulty in this game is not the good kind. I think for me, though, actually, the more I've seen of this game, the reviews and everything, this has officially made it onto my anticipated list retroactively. I look forward to picking this up and trying it when I have the time. So, what are your thoughts on Sifu?
Yeah, it wasn't really on my radar until launch either. Some of the initial reviews have gotten me a lot more interested in it. My thinking is that this very much seems like a game for you. I've been starting to more substantially enjoy difficult video games as I've started playing more kind of increasing the amount of video games I play in recent years. So I'm wondering if I might enjoy this. I don't know if I would, but I'm I'm actually a lot more excited about it now. I think the style looks super interesting. Some of the core game mechanics of like the life pool and how you kind of age as a character, and how aging kind of correlates with the amount of lives you have left, is a really interesting mechanic that is thematically super cool for like the type of martial arts story this is. Um, I'm excited to try this. I do plan to try it. It's not immediate on my priority list, but this is something I plan to pick up and try probably at some point this year. I
Yeah.
don't
I,
know. I don't know if it's going to be for me, but I'm going to try it. I'm excited about it, and even if it's not for me, I'm starting to really see why there are a subset of people who this seems to be a knock out of the park for.
yeah. I think if this is going to be for you, it'll be because it's a shorter experience.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, maybe that could make it something you end up checking out. But not to get too in depth with this, but it describes the persistent checkpoint situation. And I think that's my favorite thing I've seen about, because I'm not big on these roguelite type games we've been getting. I'd rather Returnal have just been a single player story driven game with normal checkpoints and save points. Um, but what I think is really cool, I think this is actually innovation on this front. The fact that it has 5 levels essentially, and each time you beat a level, it creates a save of what age you are at that level. And so essentially the goal is just to create the lowest age you can saved at the end of a level. And then you can try the next level over and over again until you're good at it and then set a low age for the next one. I think it's a really nice balance and trade off between. I'm not a big fan of these. You got to beat the whole thing in one life. Like
Same.
they just don't do it for me. The satisfaction's kind of there, but the frustration outweighs it. I think this is a really nice compromise there. I look forward to trying this system. And based on what I've heard, I kind of hope that other games that want to be in this vein will um, emulate this system that they've set up.
Yeah, I agree. I have trouble connecting with straight roguelike games where you have to get through the whole thing in one go. As someone with kids, like it makes it even harder to get through those. So I'm excited about innovation in the sense of like having some form of checkpoint and save while still having a more difficult game where you still are trying to like make certain progress at a certain level. So it's an interesting mix of elements. I'm excited for it.
Definitely, definitely. Well, that ends our news section. And if you're still here, that can only mean one thing. What does it mean, Zach?
That you have fallen madly in love with us, or
It might mean that, or it might mean that you want to know what we've been playing. So, what have
or
you been
that
playing,
one of
Zach?
those two things. So I've been playing 3 games right now. I've been playing Pokemon, so I picked that up. Maybe a touch late to the party, but I'm enjoying Pokemon quite a bit. Have some complaints with it. I don't know that I'm going to have anything to say that hasn't been said by a lot of reviewers, but graphics are a real problem. Gameplay is a lot of fun. I still have a ways to go with it, but I'm really enjoying some of the fresh takes on like mechanics for catching and battling Pokemon. A little bit more open world of a feel, even though it's not a true open world. I'm excited to talk about it more in depth in a future breakdown, but Pokemon's been pretty fun. So that's one of the games I've been playing. Um, and then I've also been playing Ori and the Blind Forest, the original. It's a game that I've wanted
Oh
to
man,
play.
I had straight forgotten what the original was called.
Yeah.
After Will of the Wisps, the original just became Ori. Like I forgot it
Mm-hmm.
had a subtitle.
And that's another one I'm late to the party on. Like that was obviously a lot of people love that game. It's at what 4 years old maybe at this point, 4 or 5 years old.
Is that not older than that?
Maybe it's
Maybe
older.
you're
I
right. I
I
don't
could
know.
I could be wrong. But I had never gotten through it, so I'm probably 70% of the way through that, and I'm loving it. It's beautiful. It's a lot of fun. If you like Metroidvanias, it's a must play. Even if you don't, I think it's worth checking out. But um, enjoying Ori quite a bit. And then the final game that I am playing is Kena Bridge of Spirits on PS5. Um, and I don't know, maybe a quarter of the way through this, and it's pretty fun. It's has kind of the animation quality is kind of Pixar esque. Like you can really feel the inspiration of this studio having previously been an animation studio. The gameplay is relatively fun. The world is cool. So far, it's not knocking it out of the park, but it's pretty good. So
Okay, okay.
what have you been playing?
I'm curious, what of the three is your favorite one when you're dying to get back to?
Um, Probably either Ori or Pokemon for different reasons. I think Ori is, a kind of a masterpiece of a game, even though it's older.
Yeah.
Like it's just doing a lot of things very well.
I checked the date
Um,
here. It came out in 2015 of March, so
that
7
feels like
years.
5 years ago, but that's 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ori still like holds up really well. I would say that like from an objective standpoint, that game is the highest quality of the three. Pokemon
Yeah.
has a certain addictiveness to it that Pokemon's always had, and I feel like the
And you
slight
kind of hate it for it, but it
you kind of
does.
hate it for it, but some of the refreshing elements they bring to the new Arceus game, mixed with the core addictiveness of Pokemon, makes that pretty compelling, despite some of its pretty glaring flaws. So, um,
You're an Arceus man.
yes,
I see.
yes,
It's really
that's
divided the
right.
world in two.
It
We no
has.
longer have two different games. We just have two different pronunciations of the same game.
Yep, and you got
I was
whichever.
Team Arceus. I was Team Arceus for a little while until I realized it sounded like I was saying arse, like I was, you
That's
know.
why I like it.
Oh, that's why you're into it. Okay,
Just kidding.
I
I don't.
respect that. I
No,
respect
I'm
that.
just
So
yeah.
I switched over to Team Arceus for now, but
Arceus. Yeah,
I kind of think there's no good way to pronounce it, and I think that's also their fault.
I agree.
But
What have you been playing?
okay, so I too have been dabbling in Ar- Arceus,
Mm-hmm.
Arceus, and won't go too in depth. We are hoping to do an actual breakdown of Legends Arceus once Zach finishes the game, and I'm now at end game, running around trying to collect shinies and wasting my time. Um, the game, I'll say the game is, I think it's more fun than it deserves to be. Um, it's probably the best way I can put it, and there's moments where I've certainly been enjoying myself, along with still many critiques that I have for it in areas where I just feel like it could be better. But um, yeah, overall, I've had fun with it. The other guilty pleasure that I have been playing and continued to play. It's been probably over a month now. I've been um, back to it is Genshin Impact, and oh man,
Gotta collect those waifus.
gotta
What's
collect
the
them
male
all.
form of waifus? Because there's some pretty great male waifus.
Husbandos,
Husbando.
gotta collect the
I like the
husbandos.
nice, like the
Why
Spanish flair
why
there.
is yeah why is one Spanish and one Japanese? I don't know,
I don't
but
know, but those waifus and husbandos are uh, pretty great. I'm trying to avoid it because I don't want to get sucked back into it, and then you know
I know they know
that's
what they're
another
doing.
addictive game.
They know what they're doing. I mean, it's right up there with, you mentioned categories of games that people play daily or whatever. You've got your Destiny, and you've got Genshin, and you've got, I mean, what else comes to mind? I don't know, Fortnite. Like, I mean, there's these games that are just kind of
Hmm.
omnipresent, and it's kind of worked its way into the category more or less. So, yeah, I've been back at that, and I will say about that game, it is, first of all, it's gorgeous. If you're playing it on PC or even the next gen consoles, the art style is incredibly, um, it's simplistic, but it allows the game to run very well and look very good. Um, you know, now that I've mentioned it alongside Pokemon, it's like, why couldn't have Pokemon look like this? This game runs on a phone, you know?
Yeah.
Nintendo, what are we doing? But yeah, the game looks fantastic. If you took the monetization out of it, which you can't do, and it's not worth saying, this game is fantastic. Like, they continue to add huge new sections of the map. It's very Breath of the Wild inspired, which a lot of people know. You're flying around, you're exploring, you're finding chests, you're fighting enemies, you're doing different things. Um, Combat's fun to play. It's just, the core gameplay is very good. And the fact that you can create different teams and it really changes your gameplay style is also very cool. Recently, this past week, I switched a new character. I had mained a character named Razor since the beginning because he was like a cheap, you know, you get characters through the gacha system, which is awful. And so what you get, and you kind of work with if you're not putting a bunch of money in the game. He's who I had, played with him forever. He was great. You get to the end game, he's less great. switched to a new character named Ningguang, and she completely different play style. Got her all geared out, got her the stuff she needs to kick some butt, and just having a blast. My entire team has completely changed in the way that you play moment to moment. So different and way better. Like the team is better, even on paper with damage. But it's just been a lot of fun getting to see how different teams play. But all this under the shadow of the gacha system, which is just dirty and scummy and so obscenely overpriced. It is specifically targeting very wealthy people or people who have a serious problem with addiction, which is, you hate to see it in video games, and you wish it would go away, but here it is. So
can't wait to dive more into it.
I know, can't wait to play more. It's my guilty pleasure I've been ashamedly playing more of. So I don't know. You can't win either way. There's monsters everywhere in gaming these days.
Yeah, and I mean, if the pros outweigh the cons, then there's a lot. The game has a lot going for it.
Yeah, and you know what? If you play it regularly or whatever, you can save up and you can get certain characters, depending.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, well, if you stuck with us till the very bitter end, you are our favorite. And keep in mind, you can leave us a comment, a like, a rating, subscribe. It all goes a long way, and we appreciate it. Remember, you can find us over at patreon.com/NeverLag, here on YouTube or wherever the heck you get your podcasts. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on NeverLag.